Great. Welcome, everyone, to Brandeo Collection. Today, we continue our interview series where we spend some time talking to different collectors about their collections and a little bit about themselves. Today's special guest is Jerrad Sanders. He is an avid Star Wars prop and autograph collector. Thank you so much, Jerrad, for joining us today.
Absolutely, man. I'm really excited that you're doing this. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun kind of getting started and talking to other collectors about different types of things. So one of the first questions I always like to do and jump into things is what first got you into collecting props?
Man, I was thinking about that when I was getting everything set up and like looking back here at what this table is, kind of entertainment center now. It started out with like 6 FX Master Replica Black Series lightsabers. Like I had them out. They were, the Black Series, they come on this like little U shape that you can put the blade through and it kind of counterbalances itself and looks nice. And I realized, I'm like, man, I'm running out of space. You know what would be really cool? If I could get a lightsaber that didn't have the blade attached to it. Like just give me the hilt. And that's what started the madness. I mean, it went from upgrading those sabers to I learned that Master Replicas did props, static props. I'm like, okay, well, let me get these lightsabers. Wait, they do blasters? They do ships? Okay, here we go. I mean, I was all in after that.
You know, it's crazy, like thinking back to the Master Replica stuff. I remember me and my brother would go to Best Buy with my dad, and they had the ones with the blades that actually lit up and had the sound effects and everything like that. Thinking back now, it's kind of like, wow, we were doing that. Me and my brother were fighting in the backyard with those. Even how expensive they were at the time. It's like, it's crazy. Like I still have some of those at my parents' house, but I remember some of those Master Replica ones.
And they're fun. I mean, when they light up and they make the sounds, you get to play. I played with my kids with them now, and now it's like, Dylan, who's a big Sith guy, which just breaks Dad's heart over here. He's a big Kylo fan and a big Darth Vader fan. So I'm like, well, here, take Kylo's. And the Black Series Kylo saber is like 15 pounds. So this little 8-year-old's running around like, Dad, let's go. I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, that was me too. I was a big Sith guy, Sith kid growing up. I was big into Darth Vader and Darth Maul and all that type of stuff.
On brand, Jonathan.
Yeah. But it's and my brother was the other side, so he had the Anakin lightsaber before he turned to Darth Vader. But
and it's so cool what they're doing with them now. Like, Master Replicas had it, and then Black Series took it over, and they kind of reissued some, and did some with the other. Which that's what's so cool about just collecting, whether it's props or anything. Just the different variants that you can get, because especially on the secondary market, when you look at the Anakin lightsaber, like the fixed blade Master Replica, that you could also get the one for like $50 more with the removable blade. And and that there's always a premium on those, even now, like on eBay when you try to go find them. But Black Series, they've done some upgrades with the actual blades, the lights inside, like the Mace Windu Master Replica FX sabers. The purple just isn't as bright as it is now, and that's just advanced technologically speaking, in 10 years since they've done it. And now even with the Hasbro FX, like whatever they are, the super expensive ones, I say super expensive, they're like $250 for the FX saber with the hilt, and they're in the smaller boxes. And I think they just did Darth Revan and Sidious. Like there's a handful of the new updated sabers that are out that I'm just like, okay, I guess if we've got to do it, we've got to do it.
Yeah, and I know they're coming out with a dark saber too. Like a more because I know there's like a more kid version of it, and then now there's a more kind of high end version from Hasbro coming out too. But
well, and that's the cool thing, like you've been able to get the dark saber for a couple years now. You know, I'm a big supporter of everything. Most everything that you'll see back here is all licensed replica, but or replicas. But in the off chance they don't make it and you have to go to the RPF and get something, like there's artists and guys that do really really good jobs on very specific items that isn't available, that's not
Hmm.
being made, that has no plans of ever being made. And I think if we wouldn't have got the Mandalorian, I don't think we ever would have got the black saber
That's
or
true.
dark saber.
Yeah. And that actually kind of transitions into my next question is that, I mean, we can see, of course, from all the stuff that's behind you right now, but I was going to ask, like, what type of props is kind of your focus? Do you have a focus or something that you primarily focus on?
So I only collect Rebels and Jedi stuff. I don't collect any Empire or any Sith stuff. I do have a Darth Vader master replica static prop that it's not back here, but that's the only kind of bad guy thing that I have. So I mean, you know, outside of helmets. But as far as the props go, I mean, you have the AT-AT, you have there's several big items that I could have that I just choose not to, and that just kind of helps me stay focused. Not, you know, it makes it the completionist in me the ability to actually say, okay, I'm done. Like
Mhm.
there's nothing else Rebels or Jedi related that I can get for master replicas that I need that's a real hole in the collection.
Yeah, and I know you spoke a little bit about having the license stuff, and then of course, kind of supporting maybe some other people who are making props too. So is Master Replicas kind of like the main company that you kind of focus on when it comes to the different? I know there's been different companies over the years that have made Star Wars props.
Yeah, I mean EFX, which came after Master Replicas, I mean it's kind of what came from the ashes of Master Replicas when they shut down. I have an Ahsoka saber, and I have what else do I have? Oh, that Luke helmet.
Hmm.
That Luke helmet. That's a EFX helmet, Red 5. But besides that, like EFX just didn't put out a whole lot. Oh, and I have a Luke Return of the Jedi reveal saber. It's cool. Like it comes apart in like three pieces. It opens up. You can see the emitter and the crystal, and it's pretty neat. It's their what they did put out was really really nice. They just didn't do that much of it, unfortunately. They had
Hmm.
plans to, and you know I think I talked about it in the blog a little bit. It just comes down to the royalties that these companies have to pay to produce this stuff. Like it just always kind of seems to be the linchpin in in the sustainability of it because master replicas, I mean, for 6, 8, 9, 10 years, however long that run was, they crushed it. I mean, they were putting out so much stuff, and then overnight it was just over.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually remember from the Master Replicas time too, not just the Star Wars stuff, but I know they were doing like Pirates of the Caribbean props and
Mm-hmm.
stuff too. Like I had a couple of those. Like they made the Aztec coin and like the key from the second Pirates and all that type of
Mm-hmm.
stuff that were like you would have thought you had the actual the actual
Mm-hmm.
prop. Like that's how great the quality was. And I remember they weren't really that expensive. At least those weren't in the consideration of how great the quality was on a lot of those. And I kind of dropped off that side. So that's why like talking to you about what kind of came after Master Replicas and stuff like that and what kind of happened to them that they kind of went off and then it kind of moved on to some other companies. It's interesting to see that what has happened over the years, of course, between changing companies of Lucasfilm and all this stuff between Lucasfilm now to Disney and all that type of stuff.
Hey, the mouse has money. If there's money to be made, I mean, I think they'll do it. I mean, there will be a time when, you know, like especially I keep getting mixed up. When I was doing vlogs all the time, I was so good at pointing behind me. But like this is the studio scale ESB Falcon. That's the one thing I wanted, and then I have like 90 other Falcons up here. I have like almost every Falcon you could buy. Uh, and that's kind of what we'll get into that. That's what got me into autographs actually was that Falcon, because I wanted the signature edition
Mhm.
Falcon, and it's like, oh, there's none out there. You can't buy it. There's no place to get it, even on eBay or whatever. Like the SE Falcon, it just wasn't when I was in the market for it in 2016 or whenever it was. There wasn't one for sale, which is crazy. So I mean, I bought the
Yeah.
LE and then just kind of pieced it together as I went.
Yeah, so that actually could bring it into going off of that. So my next question actually was, do you have a favorite item that's in your collection? Like something that you'd say, like if somebody asked you that question, I know it's difficult for me sometimes, but if you had like a favorite item that you'd have to say.
It's got to be the studio scale Falcon. I mean, I think it's the closest reproduction of what they actually used to film or during the filming of ESB, the EFX shots. And like Andy and the guys at SWAU, like Lauren Peterson and all those guys. Like, I mean, they know all. I mean, those are the
Mhm.
guys that actually did it. And I mean, and so that's I think most people that collect props that are into Star Wars, I think that's kind of the centerpiece or grail piece that they would want to add to their collection. And so that's what I wanted, and I got it pretty early on because I'm like, the price is only going to go up.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
now it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I know we've talked with mutual friends like over the last year, of course, when it comes to just how crazy the collecting market in general has been during COVID and during the lockdowns and everything like that. Just how some things that were already expensive have now kind of skyrocketed to some crazy extremes all across all different types of collecting fields.
It's a whole thing now. I mean,
Yeah.
it I think there's a real barrier to entry to collecting at this point. I mean, unless there's a big crash and we hit a valley again, like there's stuff that I have that I would never buy now at current
Mhm.
prices just because it doesn't make any sense. If it was one piece and I really wanted a ESB Luke lightsaber, maybe you drop the $2,000 or $1,500 on it, but you know, when I was getting this stuff, it was two, three, $400. Maybe 10%, 15% over retail of what it cost. And granted, they weren't the signature editions, but they're still the master replica static props.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know we were talking about the lightsabers before. It's interesting. Like I have them here to the side of me, the Galaxy's Edge ones,
Mm-hmm.
that you can get there at Doc on Dars. So like
Mm-hmm.
these are pretty nice quality, and these you can put the blades in too,
Mm-hmm.
if you really wanted to, or you can just display them like this. So this is a good kind of entry level, I think, too, for some people,
Oh, I have
in those
several of
cases.
those. I have several of those. They make a lot of them really good. The only downside to those, and you have what? You have the Return of the Jedi Luke, and what's the one behind that?
It says it's Ray's, but the Anakin's lightsaber.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now that is raised because Anakin's
Yeah.
lightsaber is vastly different. And that's the thing I was talking to somebody about the other day. I was like, well, no, Anakin's Revenge of the Sith, Anakin's lightsaber. It had a lot of gold trim. It had, the activation switch was gold. He had a little switch on the side of that was gold. And then you fast forward to A New Hope. Luke's A New Hope saber had a bubble strip on it.
Mhm.
The activating switch was a bubble strip, and then you jump to ESB, and it was like a circuit board switch, and then you jump forward again to raise, and it's back to the bubble strip. Or was it back to the bubble strip?
It's got the here. I'll actually
No,
bring.
she kept the circuit board strip,
Yeah.
but it's like it was on the other side
Hmm.
versus the ESB one. And so I mean, it's funny how the sabers have changed over the years because that's definitely Rey's saber because Anakin's saber looks way different than that.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, I know you can see the differences between like this and even that like Anakin master replica that I had.
Mm-hmm.
You can see the little differences. It's funny like how they they change those things from film to film, even though it's supposed to be the same thing. And there's like little differences, like Darth Vader's chest plate is different in each movie. A stormtrooper's armor is slightly different in each movie.
See, and
It's interesting.
I like to think personally that they did that because they were trying to like change little things, or they, George wanted something a little different, and then but like the logical side of my brain's like, they didn't remember, and they were like, well, do you have a picture of it? It's like, no, I thought you had a picture of it. They're like, well, I think it was kind of like this, and they're like, yeah, that's close. That's it.
That's
It's
probably
not
what
like,
it was.
well, because it's not like it is today where you have the Lucas archives and you can go in there and pull images for everything. I mean, if you're talking, 77 to 79, 80, like they just didn't have what they have now. I mean, it wasn't, when the first Star Wars got done, they weren't like, all right, archive everything because this is going to be the biggest hit in the world.
Mm-hmm.
They're just like, yeah, it all probably got thrown in a trailer somewhere and was like, yeah, we'll see if we ever need this stuff again.
Yeah, it's I know that there's people who focus on those specifically. I know that, like, for example, for the hot toys that I collect, like there's the little differences between each of the different figures. So there's Darth Vader from New Hope, Darth Vader from Empire, and then Return of the Jedi. So you have like each one that's just enough different. Like if somebody walks in the room here who's not a super Star Wars nerd, they're going to be like, why do you have 3 Darth Vaders? Like, what's different? It's Darth Vader. But then you start going, well, the buttons are this color on this one, and the buttons are on this one. This from is the chest plate is on this side, or this thing's on this. So it's one of those things.
Jonathan, don't lie. You're like, well, I'm glad that you asked. Let me explain it to you.
That does what happens here, and then everybody rolls their eyes, and they're like, okay, why did I even walk in the room? But just kind of going off of, we're talking about all these things. Is there like a certain item that you don't currently have that you're like, oh, that's something I really want to add to my collection?
Yes. And it's one of those things I don't think that I'll ever get it at this point. I mean, it would just have to be a Hail Mary shot in the dark. I catch it on eBay. Some guy doesn't know what he has, and he just lists it super cheap somewhere. The Ralph McQuarrie Vader concept helmet that EFX did put out. I mean, I think the last one that I saw sold for like 10 grand.
Oof.
Yeah. Oof. It's like that, or do you go and, it'd either be between that or the Master Replica Y-Wing. Towards the end, the last couple years of Master Replicas, they didn't finish out the production runs. So like it's like one of 1,500. On some of these pieces, they didn't get to the 1,500 mark. And the Y-Wing is one of them. I mean, I have the Snow Speeder here. Then I got the Falcon, goodness gracious, right here. But the Y-Wing, it's beautiful. I mean, but I've seen like 4 or 5 come up for sale in the last 4 or 5 years. Like they rarely do. And then, the thing with Master Replicas is you didn't really get a consistent paint job. Like it would kind of be from piece to piece. And it's kind of like an autograph or a comic book, per se, for something I can quantify that for you to understand. It's like the difference between a 9.8 and a 9.4, slab graded, etc. The like some of the Y-Wings or Snow Speeders would go for a 9.4 because the paint job just wasn't the best, versus you get one with a really good paint job and you're going to pay 9.8 prices. So it'd either be the concept Vader helmet from EFX or the Y-Wing.
Awesome.
Because again, the Y-Wing studio scale.
Yeah, those studio scale ones. I mean, especially I've been looking at your Millennium Falcon there behind you, but that one, those are pretty awesome. Just because, like, if you want to go to the filmmaking side of things.
And it lights up. It's got the running lights on the front. The cockpit lights up. You get to see all the controls on the back wall of the Falcon's cockpit, just like in the movie. I mean, they they spared no expense. It's like, it's like Hammond from Jurassic Park did it. They spared no expense on this stuff. And at the time, I can't remember what they retailed for. I want to say like the signature edition was like $2,500, which isn't cheap. Like to pre-order that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of crazy.
But in the scheme of things, it actually kind of seems, I guess, looking at it today, seems a little cheaper than what I would have thought, I guess, in the scheme of things.
Yeah, but think about when it came out back.
That's true.
I can't remember what year. There's prop guys that are like, it was the third quarter of this year. I'm like, yeah, I don't know.
So before we actually move on to kind of a different topic and we get to wrapping kind of into the next section, I actually wanted to bring up some photos that you sent over to me of some things, just so I can bring them up here on the screen and show everybody. So this first one I have here, let me make sure I get it all up there correctly. So here we go.
My Ghost.
So this is the Ghost from Rebels, right?
Yep. It's a little smaller than studio scale, but it's as close as you could get. And that thing, it's fully lit, just like the Millennium Falcon. There's one of my buddies, his name's Peter Lawrence. He's actually one of the admins over at Master Replica's Star Wars collecting group. He did the paint job. He put it together. He put in the hours. He was an absolute saint to do this for me.
Here, we'll bring up another angle here too. I really like seeing the little details that are on here.
Mm-hmm. You got that logo on the side of the front ramp right there. I mean, that thing's screen accurate. And if we weren't doing this right now, I could definitely tell you the guy that made the mold. He actually did the mold for the Sandcrawler, I think in Rise of Skywalker.
Oh, cool.
That they use in Rise of Skywalker. Randy Moore. Randy Moore was the guy that put this kit out. And again, this was just pieces of a mold that he just made himself. And so again, this goes back to the RPF thing. It's like, I want a studio scale version of the Ghost. You can't get it. There's these artists and creators and guys out there that this is all they do. There's guys that do Boba Fett helmets. And, now that you can get the Boba Fett helmet from Hasbro, I'm sure that that's kind of suffered. And since I've kind of transitioned into autographs and some other areas of focus now that I feel like I have most of what I want from props, I don't keep up with stuff like I used to. So, I mean, I don't necessarily know, but, that's the other thing I would say is it's really cool what Hasbro's doing. And I mean, we've talked about it on our little friend chats about the quality and putting a Mandalorian Hasbro helmet next to a Novus Shore Trooper helmet. They kind of just hold up. I mean, as long as it's on a stand and it's kind of floating there, you don't really know. I mean, yeah, you can go spend the $800 on a Novus or EFX Mando Season 1 or Mando Season 2 helmet, or pay $1,200, resale if you didn't get the pre-order in, or you just get the $100 Hasbro helmet and it's fantastic. Like I've been able to continue to kind of grow and add to my prop displays with, some static prop replicas from Master Replicas, some EFX stuff, some custom commission pieces, and now I'm throwing some Hasbro stuff in there. And even, Galaxy's Edge stuff like the Yoda lamp from ESB, mine, and he's sitting there hidden R2. I mean, like having that lamp, like, I think that's the benefit of Disney buying Star Wars is we never would have got those without them selling them in Galaxy's Edge. And it's a lot of fun to be able to continue to add to my props.
Yeah, it's fun because like we're talking about the Galaxy's Edge lightsabers too. Like I have a couple other things over here, just like the holocrons that they make that you could put the kyber crystals
Mm-hmm.
in, and things like that. And even just like I really enjoy kind of the world building stuff that they sell there too, like the stuffed animals that look like they were actually made there,
Mm-hmm.
and like the little wooden figures and all that type of stuff. It's to just add a little, like, it feels like a prop even though it's not something that was actually in the film per
Mm-hmm.
se, but it adds a little kind of extra like feeling to it that makes it stand
We'll
out a lot.
see. And I know that that wooden stormtrooper toy, I think that was the one that young Jyn Erso had in Rogue
Hmm.
One. And so it's like being able to piece that together, and even like the Sith statues that were in Palpatine's office in, you know, Revenge of the Sith,
Hmm.
like getting those, Doc, what is it, Doc
Doc Ondars.
Andors? Yeah, Andors. Getting the like I have the Temple Guard saber, and you can
Hmm.
get the Temple Guard mask, which the Grand Inquisitor ends up wearing in one of the later seasons, if not the last seasons of Rebels.
Hmm.
And getting the stuff from the cartoons, like that's been the best part. And I'll send some pictures later. Like I have Kanan's saber, I have Ezra's saber. Like being able to get all that stuff from the cartoons has kind of really kept me in the prop world, because if you just limit it to either the original trilogy or the prequel trilogy, you can kind of run out of stuff fairly quickly on what you're going to collect.
Hmm.
But now with Rogue One and Rebels, and even then getting back and doing some Clone War stuff, and even Fallen Order. I mean, I think there was a vote up, earlier
Yeah.
last year, where it's like, what saber do you want to see next? And even the Vader game for Oculus Rift, like that saber was included, and it's like, make them all. I'll take them all.
Yeah, I believe, yeah, the Cal Kestis one was the one that won that poll.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I think it's supposed to come out sometime in the fall, I believe, this year or so, I think they said. But yeah, I saw that one from Vader Immortal from the VR game, and I was like, yeah, I would like that one too. I was like the proto saber basically. But
Did you play
it's
that
cool.
game?
Yeah,
It
yeah,
is so much fun.
it was a lot of fun. I started playing the other one too, the Galaxy's Edge one, but I never finished it. But I finished the Vader Immortal one.
It's so funny you say that, because Sage walked in last night. She goes, "I can't beat this level in the new Star Wars game," and I'm like, I'm to that age with my kids where they're like, "Dad, you're good at video games. Come beat this level for me." And I'm like, "Let me show you how it's done with Thundercats."
Yeah, it's funny, like just how big and how expansive everything's been. We were talking about merchandise, but of course with everything that Disney now can offer to Star
Mm-hmm.
Wars, with that. But that actually kind of transitions into my next question, which is, other than props, do you have something else that you primarily collect, and do you have a favorite item from that other types of collection you have?
Man, so after props, so I'm a prop collector first, and through that, and through, like I said, getting the limited editions and not the signature editions, just because the entry level price points were so much higher, double, triple sometimes, is when I bought my Falcon, I'm like, you know what I want? I want a Han Solo autograph to put above this thing on the wall, a big Harrison Ford. So I joined this little group called Star Wars Autograph Universe. I mean, and it's not such a little group anymore. And I was like, so I got my Harrison Ford. I got a Harrison Ford. It's the one of him in carbonite. It's a big, like 18 by 12 or something,
Mhm.
20 by 12. It's one of my bigger pieces. But I transitioned from that. Then I was like, ooh, Carrie Fisher, Princess Leia. I like that. And it just spiraled out of control from there. And fast forward however many years it's been, and really enjoying the autographs. And then I'm like, wait. You know what I can do? I can start adding these little signature plaques to my limited edition pieces. And it's it's a very generic. When I do my plaques, I do them very generic. I don't even go off like the serial numbers that are on the actual pieces. I just say, signature edition, and I'll put it in there with whatever piece it is. There's some you can't do, but like, I did get a plaque made for my Millennium Falcon. Now I don't display it because I'm trying to figure out a good way to either put a piece of paper in there as the plaque, because I don't want to just throw the Harrison Ford autograph in
Mhm.
there and then have the sun faded away. So I keep it all in archival grade books and out of the sunlight so they don't vanish like disappearing ink. But autographs are pretty big. I'm kind of like you. I've started getting into comics, which, oh my god, what a deep dark hole that can be. It's a lot. But and action figures. I really like
Mhm.
the 3 3/4 inch stuff. I really like what they've been doing with the retro collection. Getting some of the new old stuff that I wasn't around for as a kid,
Mhm.
and even the vintage collection. Trying to round that out because there's like 170 of them. It's nothing crazy. Some of them are high dollar, but you can usually get all that stuff, and it's not so much to play with them. But granted, I do have, the big Millennium Falcon. I have been known to pull that down and throw the figures in there and play with the kids from time to time. But I mean, action figures, the toys, the autographs, and the props. That's kind of it's more than I need, Jonathan.
Mhm.
I need to collect less.
Don't we all? Isn't it like where we all kind of we get someplace and we're like, oh, I'm just gonna focus on this one thing,
I cut
and then
Black
you
Series out
start
of my
looking
life.
around.
That's the one thing I have done this year is I cut Black Series out of my life. I'm like, look, I don't need
Mhm.
the 6 inch figures. I don't need all that stuff. So I keep it to the 3 3/4. But my props and all this stuff, like it kind of hit its mark, and it's kind of that era's over because, like I said, outside of a Y wing or a Vader McQuarrie concept helmet, there's nothing else that I really want to add, unless it's a new Galaxy's Edge saber or a new Disney something that I'd want to add to the display. But I can't even in my office here. I can't even display all my stuff. Like some of it just has to sit in the boxes, and that's what I found so interesting about a lot of the prop collectors. Like there's a guy Lee. He has a great setup. All his stuff's out. My buddy Dave. He has all of his stuff out. But by and large, like a lot of the prop guys, because it takes up so much space, is it just sits in boxes. And they're like, oh, until I build my house or until I get into a space where I can properly display it, it just sits in the brown shippers in a either climate controlled or in a basement or somewhere. But it's so hard to display everything.
Yeah, that's I guess the biggest burden of a collector in general is where to put all your stuff, and just having a spot to put it, of course, like otherwise, like, and have it be safe. Like, that's the number one thing, like you were saying, having like your autographs in a nice, like, the controlled kind of environment, so you don't have to worry about fading or something damaging them, or even having your props in a nice spot where nothing's gonna fall and break them for whatever reason if they're being stored someplace. It's one of those biggest things, and I think a big part of the decision for all of us, like trying to decide what's getting added to the collection and what's kind of sticking around and all those types of things.
So let me ask you: do you have all your Hot Toys out?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I have everything. I've started to kind of focus a little bit more specifically. My main focus is Star Wars and Marvel. So I have a mix. There's some DC stuff back there. But overall it's Star Wars and Marvel. So I try to do it where exactly like kind of what you were talking about, kind of keep it where to keep that stuff outside. Um, and then if I can't fit it, then that means that I'm not going to add it. So like,
Okay,
or something has to go.
I like
So like
that.
something needs to go to come in. So like I want to get some more endgame figures, but in order for those endgame figures to go on the shelf, some things need to go out of the collection. Something needs to be sold, or so forth in those cases in order to bring that in. So, and I've done that. Some stuff I've had for a long time, but other things, some things have left and gone back and forth between the collection. But it's interesting. I mean, that's we've talked about it before on here, and this actually brings us into our next question. Next question is, do you have any advice for other collectors? And I know I've talked to other people before in previous talks about how being very conscious about being smart about your decisions, about like not pushing stuff to the side, important things over your collection. So,
Oh
but
yeah.
just for you, like, do you have any advice that you'd give to either beginning collectors or just collectors even collectors who've been collecting for a long time?
Always collect, do what you love. I mean, as long as, like you said, as long as it's not at the expense of the mortgage or bills, or you're extending yourself or putting yourself in a spot financially that, could do some long-term damage to your financial well-being. Collect what you love. Like, I think there's probably a lot of prop guys that absolutely hate what I do, that I put studio house quality props next to, you know, RPF sabers or Galaxy Edge saber, or yeah, Galaxy's Edge sabers. Kind of mixing in toys with props with, third party stuff. Like it could be sacrilege, but everything that I have out is something that I love. And, it doesn't matter to me what someone else is going to say about my display, or the way that the things that I choose to mix and mash together to get it, or getting, aftermarket plaques signed by Hayden. But you know what? My episode 3 Anakin saber has a square plaque signed by Hayden. Don't care that it's not the master replica signature edition one. Like that just doesn't factor into it for me, because I got that saber at a great deal and I got
Mm-hmm.
the plaque signed. And what cost me $400 all in for everything, compared to 2,000 or 2,500 bucks for a SE edition. Like, be smart, be frugal with what you're doing. Do some research, get out there and see what's available. Don't just jump on the first thing, and don't feel like you have to keep up with the Joneses. Being friends with Pete Bindu has really taught me, like, you're never gonna have the most or the best collection. Don't try to keep up with the Joneses. Don't try to add everything in the first 6 months of finding a little corner of the collecting world that you enjoy. Pace yourself, do some research, add what you can when you can, and just buy what you love. Buy what you or buy you know or buy what you like, and don't let other people say, oh, well, that's, you can't do that. Don't buy that one. Buy this one. You got to have this one. I see guys going down rabbit holes of, they'll buy the limited editions and they're like, oh, well, I got to have the signature editions. And I've seen them. Then they upgrade, and I'm like, man, what they've put into this stuff. And I try to tell them, like, dude, if you want a Hayden or Vader saber, just like get a plaque made and sit it in whenever they're doing a signing, or whenever they show up at a show, or Ace, or an SWAU send in. You can get the plaque signed, and it's like $150 versus $2,500. Like, but some guy, they have to have the numbered plaque, and it has to all be sequential, and it all has to look the same side by side. And I mean, I get it, but that's just not me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know there's various different types of collectors that, of course, that are want something very specific, or they just like I'm kind of in the same boat as you. Is that for me, like, even having just something nice that's next to a figure or next to a
Hmm.
prop in the collection, or anything, just having something nice that is actually signed by that actor or creator in the case sometimes, or those things, like that alone just stands out enough to me. Like, but I've come across those people too that want to be very specific. And I mean, if that what makes you happy, exactly what you said, then hey, like, that's the best thing for you, as long as you're doing it smartly and it makes sense for your
Hmm.
collection.
For sure.
So just to kind of wrap things up, actually, just since we have a little bit of a different perspective this time than before, a question I actually want to ask you is your family into collecting in any way? Like, or are they getting started in your kids or anything like that?
Not really. I mean, unless we're talking, no. I mean,
Hmm.
I'm trying to think or any. I mean, the boys are getting to that age where they're into like baseball cards and basketball cards, and they want to do that. But I don't really push it on them.
Hmm.
Dylan and Sage, they love to go hunting with me when I'm trying to track down a new wave of TVC that's just come out, and I'm going to hit the stores. But it hasn't really rubbed off on them. I think maybe with Dylan, he may get into comics a little bit, but no, I mean, it went from my wife being like, "This is out of control. Like, this has got to stop. Like,
Hmm.
no more of this." To where she's like, "Okay, fine. If this is going to be what you do, then I'm okay with it." Years of erosion of her will has allowed me to continue to do what I want to do. But no, I mean, I can't think of anything specifically that the kids or Amber's really into.
Yeah, no, I thought I asked just from a different perspective, like if there's like a just because you're the first person I've spoken to that has kids, as well as your collection. So I wonder if that kind of like goes off in those cases. But that's
Kids
interesting.
kids nowadays, they're into blind bags. They
Hmm.
wanna open up blind bags, and it's I equate it to gambling a little bit. And they're like, I want the Raya, Raya and the Last Dragon. I want the Raya figure out of the blind box. And we've opened up 20 of these things. No Raya. No no Raya. I mean, I think the closest it comes is Sage is into Shopkins, but
Hmm.
I don't she doesn't like keep a checklist of like, oh, I only need the shortbread, shiny, glittery one. But
Yeah, I know that it's like that's like, for example, like recently McDonald's had the Pokemon cards and everybody was freaking out about like trying to get those like special ones, like those were blind bagged. And I
oh,
know
we ate a lot of
Funko does that a
McDonald's.
lot. Yeah. So it's crazy. Like I see that a lot with like cousins and stuff too, with the younger cousins with going for the blind boxes and stuff. But yeah, so in those cases, I mean that's pretty much what we have for today. But thank you, Jerrad, so much for jumping on here and going over props and everything. And I heard you actually mention earlier your blog post that I know you posted with Star Wars Autograph Universe. So what I'll do is I'll actually put a link to that in the description below as well. So if anybody is interested in reading that, it's a very interesting read that you go into props and plaques and all that type of stuff. So it's really interesting read as well. So I'll put that there. And then in those cases, just want to say thank you to everybody for watching today. If you enjoyed this video, please always remember to like and subscribe. I have all the social links below in the description as well. So follow us on social media and you can follow along for additional content and additional videos upcoming from there. So Jerrad, once again, thank you so much. And everybody, have a wonderful rest of your evening. And always remember, keep on collecting.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more. Remember to click that bell notification to be notified when we post new content. You can follow us on our social media links for additional content and updates on future videos. The links are provided in the description below. And always remember, keep on collecting.